Thank you for coming, people from Atelier13. And we will try, this is part of a series of conversations that I'm having here in the gallery with other people. The idea is mostly like have conversations in person, not via Jitsi, Zoom, Meet, whatever, or Teams, nothing, but in person, taking advantage that we can, as far as the protocol allows us to do so. So also, this is very important for me as trying to give evidence that togetherness is possible, even in this situation, with a good purpose. Let's say, I would say the exhibition is a good pretext for gathering like this, having a presence from all of you for the first time in a long time. So thank you very much. And I will try, other people that I had conversations with, one is a historian, Patricia Falguier, who's a very good friend, but also she's a very important historian, art historian, who, in fact, she wrote a text for one of my catalogs for an exhibition. But she's also a professor in the ESS here in Paris. And then we've been in contact since long time ago, and we are still close. Second person was a journalist and curator, Marisol Rodriguez, who's an expert in BD, in bande dessinée, but from Mexico. Like kind of a lower budget, working class comic books for Mexico, in Mexico. And she wrote kind of a PhD thesis on that. And she works in a gallery here in Paris, so it's also this. I'm taking advantage of people who live in Paris and people who I like, who includes you, of course. It's important for me also to have you now here, because this is the real reason for me to live in Paris, to work with you in the school, in the Beaux-Arts de Paris. This is why I came to Paris, as you know. So this is super important. And then with some of you, we've been working for a longer time, but there are new faces that are also good to have in the group, in the gang. And I'm glad that we can have like lots of diversity and different points of view. I wanted for this situation today, like trying to follow the way we do every Tuesday in our presentations, in the school or online, in the Jitsi meetings we have every week, like presenting the work of each of you, as we all do sometimes, and following the same methodology. So it would be first making a description of the work, not explaining nothing, but just describing. Then the second part would be having more like a set of questions. And if necessary, I would explain something. If not, it would be more like coming out from the questions that I would say something else if it's necessary. As you know, this is the way we do every time. So the description of the work is, you can also, of course, interrupt me if you want at any moment for asking or for saying something that maybe I'm forgetting or mistaking. And the exhibition is called, maybe you can remove this and then you take the microphone for speaking. Sorry.
Just before you start the description, you often ask, who are you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Thomas. Well, my name is Abraham Cruzvillegas, and I am from Mexico. I was born in 1968, March 16, 1968, and I live in Paris. And I am a professor at the École des Beaux-Arts de Paris since 1918, 2018, oh my God. Can you imagine? 2018. And I am a chef d'atelier, Atelier13, And what else? I am a Pisces. Maybe that's it. I'm a monkey, and I have a wife, and I have two children, Anna, who's 8 years old, and Damian, who's 5. We are now in Galerie Chantal Crousel, and that is the gallery that represents my work since 10 years ago, almost 11. I've made, now this is the 5th exhibition, personal exhibition I make here. And I also participated in different group shows here, and also in other things outside the gallery here, but from or through the gallery. The name of this exhibition is La Señora de las Nueces, and it's composed by 26 monoprints made with oil paint on paper. The process of these prints is like using oil paint on glass. I use a brush of like some 10 inches long, 1 inch width, and I use oil cream, let's say, mixed with turpentine. And I make drawings on the glass in a kind of an abstracted way. So I have no idea when I start. So they are not the mimesis of nothing. They just are these lines for which I use also only basic colors, blue, red, yellow, and pink, green, and brown. And I made 26 of them because that's the number of paper that came in the pack that I bought in the store. And in this case, I made them not on glass, but on mirrors. I asked the gallery to provide me with glass, not to buy new glass. I said, like, maybe you can use the glass from one of the things that you have framed in the gallery store or storage, and then so we can put it back when I finish using it. And instead, they told me, we have no glass, but we can give you mirrors that remained from another exhibition. So I said, okay, I will use it. And then I made these prints on mirrors. And then they are, as I said, monoprints, so it means they are unique prints. And I said, I make the lines with the brush on the mirror, then I put a paper on top, I rub it with my hand, I remove the paper, and I clean the mirror with turpentine also. And then I have to clean it very, very well until it's shiny again. And then I make another one. So I made 26 of these, 26 times, I mean. Then the other part of the exhibition is a set of 10 hanging sculptures. All of them are suspending. They are suspended from the ceiling, using different devices or objects. And they all are made with different materials found in the street. These objects are, the sculptures are made with objects that I found walking from my house in my apartment in 68 Avenue Parmentier, coming to the space of a place that I was given to use as a studio in Rue Saint-Gilles, 26 Rue Saint-Gilles, like 2 blocks away from here, 6 blocks, I don't know, some 5 minutes from walking distance from here. And then this is a place that, do you want more? So it was the time that maybe you remember that I invited you to make something using the protocol of 1 hour, 1 kilometer. So I use this situation as material myself. So it is exactly 1 kilometer from my apartment to this place in Rue Saint-Gilles. It's a friend's site for a foundation. It's called Brownstone Foundation. His name is Gilbert Brownstone, and he's a former curator of the Musée d'Art Moderne de Paris. And we met some 15 years ago because he was part of the committee of Alexander Calder's studio. And after I came to the studio of Calder in the countryside, in the city, in the town of Sachet, near the city of Tours. I spent 6 months there, and then we became friends with Gilbert. And then sometimes I use this space of the foundation as a studio. So I came from my house and I collected objects from the street in these trajectories of 1 kilometer in 1 hour. Then I was accumulating this material in the place, and then I used the place for making the objects that are now hanging. And then when I made this first stage of the construction of the sculptures, as I call them, sculptures, I took them here to the gallery, and then I took them to places that I like in Paris, in my area that is more or less around here. I took one to the school, for instance, from my apartment, from here to my apartment, and then to the school, and then from the school to the gallery back, collecting materials that I could found on the way, not looking necessarily for something, but mostly finding things. Sometimes I found nothing, but sometimes I found something. And then this I used for finishing the sculptures, or even for hanging the sculptures. Like there, in that one that is in that corner, I just found around the corner from here a keyboard for a computer that I use for hanging the sculpture. The sculptures are made thinking that I would carry them on my back, kind of backpacks, and or also using my forehead. You know, like I used my belt, the belt I was wearing that day, for putting it on my head, my forehead, and then attached to the object on my back as a thumb line, it's called in English. In Mexico, we have this that is called mecapal, that is for carrying goods or material or stones, wood, anything. And also in Asia, for instance, they use it for carrying rice or tea with the forehead, you know, on the back. So that was my idea, and then I took them to these places, like my favorite bar, my favorite restaurant, the school again, my friends' apartments, square, like a garden for the children where I go, and so on. So it was like choosing 10 places on the map to go to with carrying these objects on my back. And then I didn't design any kind of specific trajectory, like lines on the map, but it was more like randomly remembering the ways to go walking to these places, which is not far. In fact, it's like maybe the place that is far more. The longer distance from here would be the building of the Communist Party in Belleville. You know, the building by Oscar Niemeyer. That was the longest distance, and then coming back. What else about the sculptures? Yes, for this process of walking in the street, I asked Gabriel to accompany me, documenting the walks in video or in photos, as I knew that he just recently made his own project on his walks, going to places of interest as related to his project. And then he used his own camera and his Steadicam and his own resources, that's what I mean, for helping me doing this. And then we accumulated 60 videos, 60 different videos from this process. And I also asked another friend to document the process of making the monoprints. The process was in the gallery storage near Aubervilliers, in the border of Paris. And then, so Alberto Cabrera, my dear friend Beto, he documented the process of making the monoprints. Finally, the third part of the project is a video that is in that room that maybe you didn't see, or you saw it, or if not, you will see it. It's a video I shot with my cell phone, which is an iPhone 10, and it's a short video. It's like around 20 seconds, And I made it at the house of a friend while she was breaking nuts, fresh nuts. I mean, like she took the nuts from the tree, and she broke them. She opened them with a stone, using another stone. And then we decided to show it in a monitor, in a flat screen, like a large screen that is in there. And also, as a kind of an extra element, is the mirrors that I use for making the monoprints. So I decided to save the last 2 drawings that are there in that room, like looking at each other, mirroring literally each other, and that's it. So that's the description. Any question?
Yeah, I was thinking of...
Maybe you need the mic, that it's there. Pardon. Thank you, Nicole.
Yes. So I was thinking how you move around with the objects and you kind of perform, I don't know if it's the word, with them, walking around with them. And I was wondering how, like, the decision of using them and having them around, but then when there's the exhibition, they are quiet and they don't move, and you don't even show them, you don't show how you, like, you don't show this process of walking. They just hear like this memory of the walk, but there's no documentation of the walk.
Well,
so
there is, but it's not shown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, why?
Okay. Well, you first asked how I walked with them, or no, it was not like a question.
No, like, it's mostly like, why
not to show the process?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nicole. The thing is that I still think it was a good idea to document the process. So for my own records, and maybe in the future I can use the documentation for something that I don't know what it is, and maybe just to look at it, to understand myself what happened in that process, and to think about it in the longer term. And also I was very clear about not showing it, as I think it's not necessary. I feel that the sculptures in the exhibition are sculptures. So they are what they are, and they have to talk by themselves about their own experience. Of course, it should be very strange if someone understands that they went out to the street carried on my back. It should be very strange or incredible, or I don't know. But I think I don't want this narrative as part of the object, and I prefer people to see them, to understand the way they were made, perhaps, and to understand maybe their shapes, their references, maybe in the language of art, and then historical references, or even more spiritual references, I would say, like why using objects, that you maybe recognize what they are originally or not. I bought almost nothing for the show. I used the bottle caps from beers that I drank myself, and I used them as washers for holding the screws and the materials together. It's something I've been doing for a long time. And then I don't feel that it's completely necessary to tell people about this, as a content of the work, as a subject matter, or as a material of the work, even when it is, because I know it. Now you know it, because I'm telling you. But of course, I don't think it's necessary completely for everybody to know, or to see, maybe. If they know, maybe they will not see. Or if they see, they would think something else, maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But also I think we used some images from the process in the street, from the gallery social network platforms. So to tell people about this, but just like snapshots, let's say, not like the video or the whole process or etc. And Maybe it doesn't really explain nothing, but
No, I think it does.
okay, thank you. Yes, Sarah. Maybe you remove your mask. Thank you.
I think it's funny what you said because as Nicole asked you about the process, I mean the traces of the process, but here in the exhibition we have the mirror and we
have the what?
We have a mirror here and the forms that you've used to print like 26 times, etc. So this piece here is like a trace of your process, you know, because we can actually see that with this you can make like these 26 prints. So I don't know, maybe it's funny to have like one trace of one process like for the prints, but we don't have the process, I mean, for the other sculpture.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. I think it's true that that's part of the process. I mean, the mirrors are kind of evidence of the process of making the prints, but I don't think it's such a narrative thing. I don't feel like it's explaining nothing, in fact. But maybe if you get it, it's good. I don't find it like that bad. In fact, I think it's. I mean, what I really have to say about the mirrors is that, as I said before, that I never used mirrors but glass. And when I got the mirrors, I was surprised of when I was making them. My image, myself, was there. So I became like a. I said it a couple of times. I don't know if I have to say it again, but I will. I was horrified. I was horrified of having my image in there. And then I was kind of surprised of dealing with this kind of thing that I didn't want to see while making them. And then slowly I kind of accepted my presence in there. And then at the end I decided to bring the mirrors, to keep them, these two last ones, and then bringing them to the gallery to check if I like them in the show or not. But it was not like as certain as like the sculptures or the prints, that I was completely certain, or the video, about having them in the show. And the mirrors were more about like testing. And then when looking at them, that in fact they are looking at each other, or again mirroring, that I started thinking many other things and references that I didn't think before in my work, because of the mirroring thing, you know. So that's more the reason for me than trying to explain people about the process of the monoprints. But in fact, you are right. It's true that that's part of it's an evidence of the process completely, and it's not like telling a story. In fact, as maybe it could be showing a video. And I made videos before. I made videos including my own image, paradoxically. Maybe a couple of them, but it's still videos that were more experimental for me. One, maybe the last one I made was here in Paris some 15 years ago or so, or 10 maybe at least, no, more. And it was like myself running in Paris, but from right to left, not the way you run normally, like this way, you know, the normal Western reading paradigm, but the opposite, from right to left as a personal comment on myself. And then this was a decision to show myself running that way in the city of Paris. But at this moment, I decided not to show my image walking in Paris, carrying the sculptures that are in this show. Yeah. It's a very subjective thing, in fact, because I think it's all about my representation, the representation of the self, I would say. You know, so it changes a lot when it's the mirrors, because when you look at them, it's not me, it's you who's there. And then or you, I mean, not you, Sarah, but, but it's more about like the people. I mean, so they are called self-portraits, these mirrors. The title of those works is self-portraits, but it's people who see them, no? So I'm trying to shift my subjectivity, you know, like my identity maybe now it would be that, like you are me and we are me, or I am you, you know? That I like. As a joke maybe, you know, as a childish joke. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Javier.
So, yeah, you were speaking about traces of oneself and again about snapshots, but actually you are like not present in the exhibition directly, but with a series of patterns. And now I'm thinking about we eating nuts here, and ASMR, which is this thing in YouTube which you amplify the sound of eating or everyday actions. And yeah, I was thinking, how do you see these prints or these sculptures as isolating and magnifying somehow your living existence, or how is it like? Yeah. Is it ASMR also?
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Javier. This is very, very good, in fact, because I mean, in general, I would say that all my work it's a self-portrait. I mean, I many times the titles are following the word self-portrait, different ways, and this is also because of what you said. It's kind of amplifying some specific moments of my experience or my existence in a very, not blurry, but in fact it's the opposite, I would say, in a very transparent way. I mean, this is me, you know, for different reasons. And I can explain the way I found each of these objects, or who with I drank each of these beers. And this describes a very specific process of becoming myself through the process of maybe destroying myself at the same time, kind of denying my image, my own representation, but at the same time showing it in a, again, not blurry, not hiding nothing, in fact, but putting in front the very object that defines my life, or my trajectories, my experience, my mistakes, or my joy. And like another thing could be like asking about the procedure for choosing objects, for having them in a sculpture, for instance. But this is something that is not a question yet, you know. But it's more like that, as you said, you know, like describing very specific moments of importance, let's say, that they go anonymous in a possible independence from myself. So they are loaded, and they have like the heavy burden of me, but I still try to liberate them from me, from myself. And this is what I follow. That one that is hanging there is one that I brought to Prosper Lego Squat in Saint-Ouen, La Volonté, that maybe you've been, because he organized a show of people he likes, or I don't know, and he asked me to show one of my works, and then I decided to carry one of these sculptures to there, so I left it there hanging. So it was exhibited. It has more experience than the others, because it was in another exhibition before, in La Volonté. And of course, in the process of walking from my house to his squat, it broke. It lost some elements, but also I found some other materials, like the stripe, the black stripe that is for industrial wrapping. I don't know the name. I found it on the way. And also some, like the green wood, and so I found it also in the street. And then I added a little strip from my cloth for cleaning my glasses. That is the lower part. So it's very, very much myself and my relationship with Prosper, for instance, but it's mute. And again, it should be very strange if someone reads all of these by looking at the work. And it would be very terrifying as well, you know, like looking at myself in the mirror, in fact. And in fact, yeah, it's funny because when I was walking there to Saint-Ouen, I met with Paul in the street, because he was coming from the school there in Saint-Ouen. And then he was listening to music and he almost didn't pay attention.
Do you think if we...
Remove the mask,
yeah.
Thomas.
I don't think we can understand the story of each object, but do you think we can feel it or feel something?
I hope so.
Okay.
You know, I think, like now that we went to Tarek, to his studio, I found it very beautiful the way he did with the self-amplifying sheet, with the microphone and the speaker together that he put on the drum, then you listen to the sound of the object being like still, not moving, not being used, let's say, but you can still listen to, let's say, a possible voice from the object. I still think the same with my things, with my sculptures. Not in a new age approach at all. Sometimes I would dare or risk to say that I like some sort of animism in terms of the perception of reality, like everything is the same or everything deserves the same dignity. But that's different, you know. It's more like what you say. Because you, with your background and with your own education and experience, you will perceive or feel, as you said, something different than any of us. And this is not new, and this is not like this is the laws of physics, maybe better than any new age theory, you know? Even it's about electricity or, I don't know, statics, perhaps, in each object according to its own experience, maybe, you know? But yeah, there are many, how you say, belts from my belly, and they carry lots of my experience. Yeah. There's one there, one there, one there. That's it. Yeah. Yes, Nicole.
Actually, when I first saw the exhibition, I thought everything in here was from you, like from your house or something. So I was wondering, how does he have so many belts? And
I had so many belts. Now I have only one.
Yeah, and even like these pieces of fabric, I also thought like maybe he cut his shirt.
My own shirt, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, for that, I mean, this is maybe the wrong answer, but it's part of it, that I was suddenly finding that I needed to make a final vertical line as the drawing, I mean, like a three-dimensional drawing, so to almost touch the floor, so coming from the ceiling to the floor, and then I cut my own shirts that I was wearing the day I made them. And at the beginning, it was like using my own shirt for telling people not to accidentally touch them or hurting themselves with any of these, because like that one has a large piece of metal. It could be bad for someone to cut with the metal, so I just hung my shirt to alert people. And then I decided that it was good, and then I cut a piece of my shirt. But some of the objects are not only from the street, but I mean, you are right. Some things are from myself, my personal shirt, belts, etc. But also some are from my apartment, like little things that came from my apartment, and and yeah, like that one has hanging an opener, a beer opener. You see, so it's the one that I always carry in my bag, just in case. Yeah.
You know, coming back in the subject of documenting this process and having as part of the process putting yourself in a condition that are unpredictable, like with many uncertainty, which is like being in the street with many other people, with many other circumstances that you cannot control in a studio environment, for example. And how this for you is important in your learning process of creation, and how do you carry this for the future, for other projects, for example?
You mean like how is it important? What exactly?
The learning process
okay.
of putting yourself in this condition that you don't control.
Right. Well, I think for me that's maybe the best way of learning. I mean, I keep saying for myself, I mean, like the real thing in my intention in any new project or in any possible exhibition or anything I do could be learning. And then learning, for instance, like walking in the streets in Paris, I think is the best way to get to know a city, you know? So normally I don't take the subway or I don't take bus, but I walk. And so that's the way I arrived to know my city, which is Paris now. And I also know very well Mexico City, but wherever I go, I walk. And then like putting yourself like a little rule or some rules for a game, let's say, helps you also finding things that are not in the rule. So it means learning again. And then sometimes breaking the rule necessarily sometimes leads you to learning again. For instance, learning how to break the rule, you know, how to create, you go creative that way. I mean, that's the way I think of myself. And then I think in this case, it was more challenging, like dealing with the nature of the objects, as sometimes they are almost not transformed. You know, there is no real modification of them in many of them. And it was a good challenge for me, like how to show that I still can learn, as I know no technique myself. I don't know any technique of making. And then it's more like trying to find out how to put things together, not knowing. I mean, I'm not trying to be humble or fake humble. No, it's true. I mean, I really try to find a way to fix things together with no technique. And this is a good way of learning again. So it should be the most important thing in my life. Besides friendship, learning. Yeah. Yeah. Does it answer your question, or well, I went somewhere else? Thank you, Gabriel. Yeah. Clément.
I have, it's messy, but I have this idea of like the first thing you identifying yourself, like you're creating self-portrait. You create a kind of self-portrait, but mixing like stuff like your belts with stuff that you find. I find it clever that you create like identification with things that are left, and at the same time you take good care of this left thing, and so you find a good solution, like the good solution to like mix them up, and not the solution that was supposed when they were cared for, when there were like objects who weren't left before. And so I think that there's like you find a clever path to like create like an honest self-portrait using things that have the emptiness of like not cared for. I don't know if that works.
Mm-hmm.
And finding like the right solution, like the good sticking of like what they really are and what was they supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mixed up, but I think there's like a really nice way to create identification through that process.
Mm-hmm.
And even with errance, to find other ways to like, not strict ways to identify, but like to like this pas de côté
Mm-hmm.
that creates like more like real ways to identify ourselves.
Yeah.
And so this circle around about your errance, I think it's errance. And the way you work formally,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like a really clever way to like create identity or like
Mm-hmm.
some other ways to identity.
Okay.
I don't know if you have, and so well, if I have a question,
Yep.
it's like because you told that you don't have a pratique d'atelier, do you have like a state of mood when you have an exhibition and a state of mood that is, because for me like these sculptures are very cared for, so do you have like a kind of like, for me it's a jazzy mood or something smooth that creates culture?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a question, but do you have protocols to create this mood that for me finally creates these objects?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a very good comment and question, Clément. Thank you. I like what you said about like the use of the word care, that like taking care of something, and then adding or trying to put together with something that belongs to me. So everything goes together in a different way than before. in the street or on my body or in my house. And this is very, very important for me. And again, for me, it's like trying to construct the horizon of a landscape in which everything is important, or everybody and everything, you know. And then the other part, the more like your comment, is that I rarely work in the studio. I mean, I don't have a studio. And then when I'm in a place where I'm supposed to make art, I am very, very neurotic. When you say a state of mind or a mood, I love my neurosis. I'm very, very manic about organizing everything. So I spent, maybe I told you this before, maybe now a couple of years ago when some of us met first, maybe Milana remembers, that I spend till most of my time in the studio arranging my things. Like putting my tools, my pencils, my pens, my beer bottles in place. So once I have everything in place, I can start working. But very often it means that I have to leave the studio because it's not anymore for me that I have to stay, that I can stay. So I kind of think that that's my more common, my more regular artwork is arranging things in the studio and finding the best place for the speaker for the music, finding the best place for my bag to hang on the wall, finding the best place for the table. And so that's my mood. And then I always play music. You talk about jazz, no? Yeah, I like playing music, but I do random music. And I do follow the suggestions that the algorithm gives me. So it's always funny. It's again, maybe as part of what you said, it's always finding something new after what the algorithm thinks that I like, you know? Then it's sometimes like very strange music that I never heard before, and it becomes part of my language then. That's part of the soundtrack of my practice, let's say, and I love it. Every day, it happens every day. That's also because my mood is permanent. I would have music now. I mean, I cannot work without, or read, or write. I cannot write without music. So, but there is no specific music. Yeah. And maybe a little bit more about what your comment is that I've been using found objects since I remember, since I started being an artist, which means in the late 1980s. This is right, it's not like my previous mistake. This is 1980s. And then I started finding things, and then there was kind of how you say, a cleaning process, like thinking how not to choose objects. So I don't choose objects. And I try not to make any selection by the qualities of the object. And this is something I acquired from the history and the language of art by indifference. That's what the artist said. Maybe you remember, no? The inframans. That's it. But of course, I took it to my own context when I was younger in Mexico, which means a very different economic and political and cultural context, which means different garbage or different things that people throw in the street. That is not the same like here. Here, I always say it's new garbage. It's very new. But it's always bad quality garbage that I don't use. Like I never use IKEA, for instance. IKEA garbage, I mean, you know? Never. Because it's not, I cannot use it. So,
There's no license.
but it's also not resistant. It's not good material. It's not, when you think it's wood, it's not wood. You know? But you know this, no? And then literally the process for choosing material for my work would be choosing something that I can use. I never use something that I cannot use. You know? So I never use garbage, in fact. You know? IKEA is garbage, so I don't use it. This is not garbage, look at it. Yeah, Milana, please.
We started with music and jazz. Maybe we can continue on that. I think Clément said it right about the free mind, free spirit that we can feel in your production, but at the same time it's so much more about the body and the movement of it, because the pieces are hanging. So in a way I can imagine you like going around and doing like small movement of hands or even contortion of your arm, and you can feel it also on the drawings as well. So there is like a kind of choreography, very meditative choreography, and also very, I don't know, contemplative. I don't have the English word.
Contemplative,
Yeah, like mood and state, and even relationship with the pieces that you're doing. So, and what else? Yeah, what about the choreography that it creates, you know, like the fact that you're hanging pieces almost on touching on the floor, so it's like it's something that's standing in their feet, but at the same time it's not quite yet, or not anymore. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I always think that it's kind of an unconscious thing, that it's not like necessarily a choreography, because there is no plan, let's say, or no intention of deliberate use of my body as performing, but of course there is lots of that. And I always think on the basics, the most basic elements of Tai Chi that are very subtle. It's not like other martial arts. It's very delicate, and like the names even, it's like caressing the back of the mule, or the protecting from the monkey, and things like that. I try to mimic sometimes when I'm working, but as a caricature of myself. You know, it's not that I'm producing any kind of harmonic use of my body when I'm working. It's in fact, it's very, very rudimentary and very stupid. I'm not good with my hands. I always hammer my fingers and cut my hands, and have so many scars that you cannot imagine. So it's not a delicate movement. It's very, 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 very bad. And then, of course, there are like little slight things that I do for finishing or for doing the sculptures that are more like, I would say almost like ornaments, you know, like little things that finish, like a touch of, and that's conscious, and I like that. But I don't feel that I am making bricolage, for instance. Never. No, it's more like constructing or something like that. Yeah. But I like when people say, like artists that I like, that they play free jazz, for instance, no, to inspire themselves, and then they make beautiful abstraction in painting. But for me, it's more like a fantasizing, or like a idealization of the image of the artist himself or herself, you know, like listening to John Coltrane, or I don't know, you know, like something like that. I find it really beautiful, but as an image, you know, and that's why I think of myself more like a caricature. No, I don't see myself as a hero constructing artworks, but more like a very bad at hands person, you know. Then I try to think of taking care of myself, in fact. Yeah, please.
And you put the only real gesture is the video, very simple video of a woman with experience, because it's an old hand, like hammering a nut, and you also invite us to like break nuts here. So even if it's like very careless gesture that you said, like you don't know how to use stuff, but actually it's something that very old and stays in the memory, immemorial memory. So how about that also? Like, it's even if you're not good with your hands, still you have something to pass on, or something is passing on through the gesture. Do you have anything to say about
Yeah,
this?
completely, totally. Yeah, thank you. This is, I mean, specifically about the video, it's something that I discovered myself when I was shooting the video. I can tell you the story now. This is not necessarily an explanation, but it's part of the process. that I was visiting this lady. Her name is Patricia Caro. She's an archaeologist. She's French, and she's been making research for some 50 years in Mexico about the Purépecha people, which is part of my roots in the west of Mexico, in the state of Michoacán. It's a native culture that exists since long time, and so my father's family belongs to that culture, so I think I do a bit also. And then I met this lady because of that. I mean, well, no, that's not true. We met because she's the mother of my wife's friends. She has twins, sons, that they attended school with Alejandra, my wife, in Mexico at the French Lycée. And then we met once with her, and I knew that she's the person who knows more about me, about my culture. And then we became friends, and I started asking her questions and more questions, and I fell in love with her. I fell in love with everybody, in fact, easily. And then we became great friends. And then she also wrote a text for one of my catalogs, one that I made for an exhibition in Peru, in Lima, in which this project was about like me trying to trace my roots through language between the Purépecha language and the Quechua from Peru. And then, so I constructed a fiction about my ancestors traveling by boat from what is Mexico now to Peru, going through Ecuador, I told you once. And then we spoke about this many times, and then it was so strange that we went during the first lockdown. She was in the countryside in her house, alone. She spent some 6 months alone there, taking care of her trees and her plants. And we went with the children, so visiting her. And she was explaining my children, this is the tree for the apples, this is the tree for the pear, this is the tree for nuts. And then she took a nut, like a fresh nut, and started with her hands doing this with the stone, like, And I found like so beautiful the gesture, so primitive, as you said, like an immemorial memory. That is, for me, maybe perhaps one of the oldest gestures for eating something, or gathering berries, or chasing an animal to kill it, And then I was looking at the video more and more many times, and I was like, surprised of this, and I decided to have it here in the exhibition as a self-portrait as well. Yeah, in the violent action of destroying something for eating and for being oneself, I mean, And then she speaks, the sound is beautiful because now it's off, but it says, she's speaking in Spanish, both in Spanish and French to my children, and she says, you like it? Try. This is the best you can have. And then she destroys the fucking nut. So it's a kind of for me it became very, very, very substantial, and it's a gift for myself, let's say, I would say, yeah. And there are more stories about nuts, but maybe you have more questions. Hi, Maya. Marie?
Yeah, so the video, it gave a name to your exhibition, and so every piece is linked in a way to this video I mentioned, and I was me, because I said before, maybe you can feel something from your object, and for me I feel a lot of childness in your work, and especially here. And you said this woman is talking to your child, in fact, and also before you told us about a video you made in which you go from right to left, and me, I'm a musician, and also for the music, and it's art of time. you go from the left to right. So when you go to the right, from the right to the left, you go from now to the past. In fact, in Europeans' culture, it's like this because we write music and speaking in this side. And so I was asking myself maybe what's your relationship with childness and maybe your own childness and
Yeah. Well, this is something that maybe more than thinking on my when I was a child, or it's
maybe even the idea of childness.
Yeah, I mean, like there is a very important element of my experience in my work that I kept using since a while now, when referring to my my experience. It's not necessarily about my memory or it's not a nostalgic element. We spoke about this with Gabriel all these days that we spent time together. I mean, to be honest also, I think it was for me calling Gabriel to do this with me because I needed to be with someone to speak during this part of the process, you know. And then it was a beautiful thing to have Gabriel with me, like exchanging ideas and experience. And we were talking about nostalgia. And I think I don't like nostalgia, and I don't try not to go to the nostalgic mirror. Then when I think on childhood or when I was a child, it takes me to different things, but not necessarily to nostalgic perception, but more like the way of learning again. And then when we had children with Alejandra, my wife, we understood that growing children means learning again everything with them, from walking to speak to eat to take a shit to clean your shit and to do everything again and again. And then that's what we are doing. And then it reminds me my own childhood. Now that we are with the children, with Damian and with Anna, and it's a kind of a good reminder of learning, but more about learning than anything else. Then the other element that's something I've been using in my work is my perception of my experience when I was a child of the construction of my house. You know, how my house was constructed physically, materially, and how it was built by us, my family. That it means that we didn't have an architect or a designer or construction workers, but it was us with family and friends and neighbors that we made our houses together. Mine and our friends, relatives, and neighbors' houses as well. So producing some sort of real community, like a real social tissue that was made through work. Even when we were children, we were working in that. And then it was kind of a permanent process of construction that it never finishes, it never ends. And then this is something that I'm trying to take back for my work when I make this, you know? Like people constructing their houses the way they can. Not because they know how to do things, because they need to construct a house. So this is the part that I take for that memory, the way I think I perceived when I was a child, which is of course very funny. And the narrative would change a lot from me to my sister, for instance. First because she's a woman, and then because she participated in a different way, like my mother. And then each member of the family has a different perception. But all together we construct one perception about this. And this is about my house, the neighborhood, the city. And this is what I'm taking back for my work from that experience. Not in a nostalgic way. And this, I think, again, it should be very strange if someone sees or tells me that they are looking at my childhood or my house, or it's not there. Of course, it's not there. I don't want to illustrate or to make any didactic on that, but to use it, to give evidence of that by using this the way I did as trying to become myself, let's say, you know. Then, of course, this is something that when I understood longer, I mean, long after that, like more recently, let's say some 20 years ago, when I was already an artist, I said, well, this is something very strong, the experience of my house and the experience of construction or the constructing, as an analogy of the construction of the identity. So the house is my identity. That is never finished. I'm still constructing my own identity. So that will be what I think about my childhood in terms of your question, you know? So the one I was when I was a child, of course it's the same, I am, but it's many me's in that sequence, like walking or running back in Paris the wrong direction. That's part of that, like giving evidence of trying to find back there, back in the, maybe in the past, what is the future, you know? So, yeah, sorry for the long answer, but that's it. I spoke a lot. Maybe I will tell you something that is not also, it's not part of the content or the narrative of the exhibition, but it's there. And when I'm asked, I tell about it. And this is a reference for the work. It's from art history. I have many references from art history here that I like a lot, but I try not to be so obvious. And maybe this is the less obvious of them. It's a sculpture in stone that is from the east of Mexico. And it's called El Señor de las Limas. El Señor de las Limas. Las Limas, it's a little village in the state of Veracruz. And it's a statue in stone that is like this big. And it's the representation of a person holding a baby that it's meant to be dead. Let's see it, Lucas. Okay. And this was found by, talking about childhood, that's why I remembered. It was found by children, by two children in the road going back home in the village of Las Limas, almost in the middle of the forest. They found kind of a green stone on the road, a shiny green stone, and they liked it, and they started breaking nuts on this stone. You know, little nuts like that. They are coconuts, in fact, they are called coyol in Mexico, and they are like very hard little coconuts. And then they started breaking with a stone on this, their coyols. And then after some storm, they started scratching and scratching and scratching and scratching, and they discovered something. And then they continued, and they were horrified, like myself. They found the Virgin. It's La Pieta. You see? This is a sculpture from the period, the classic period of the Olmec, that it means 3,000 years ago, more or less. And it was, according to the anthropologist and the archaeologist, I will pass it to you so you can see. It has like tattoos or like scars, let's say, carved on its body, the bodies, different signs, like iconographic drawings that are meant to be the key of the iconography of the Olmec. So it means the iconography of all Mesoamerican cultures, as Olmec are meant to be the mother culture of all Mesoamerican cultures. And the faces only are meant to be jaguars. And jaguars in the Olmec culture means the rain. So the jaguar is the most important, let's say, of the gods for many cultures there, for all Central America. And so it's kind of an important, emblematic sculpture from that culture. And it's now at the Olmec exhibition in Quai Branly, but you cannot see it, of course, because it's closed. So the thing is that the sculpture was taken by the family of these kids in 1965. It was discovered, and then the parents came and took it to a little shack in the village, and they put a shrine, and they put them flowers and a little cape, like a drape, to like a saint or like a virgin properly, and they started worshiping El Señor de las Limas, it was called. And then, of course, the anthropologists came and took it to a museum. In the 70s, it was stolen from the museum. And then it was found in a hotel in San Antonio in Texas, abandoned. Maybe they stole it and they thought like trying to sell it or whatever, but it was just abandoned and it was just there in a hotel room. And then it was taken back to the museum in Jalapa, in Veracruz, and it's still there, but now it's traveling again to Paris. What they say, the anthropologists, is that the statue was to be carried this way, on the back of someone who's a priest, maybe. So it has some holes under the arms and up the hip, and they say it was perhaps to carry it around where rain was needed, maybe. So it's kind of the analogy would be like a portable pyramid, like the shrine, but portable. So when I knew about this, I really went crazy because of the portability. So it became one of my 4 favorite sculptures in art history because of its portability. I was like drooling, literally, like fantasizing about making portable sculptures myself once in life, so I did it. That's one of the sources for this project, but I don't want to talk about it, but only with you. So, I mean, it's not showing, I can also show other references, like maybe talking about the Russian constructivism or assemblage art, or many references. So I don't show them, and I don't show this as part of the show. But I of course, share when necessary. And that's it, I think. Yeah. So that's why the show is called El Señor de las Nueces, La Señora de las Nueces, instead of El Señor de las Limas. Easy. This I left in the gallery, so anybody asks, they can show it. So it's there in the office. And that's it. Thank you. No? Thank you.